Newt Gingrich here, and I'd like to invite you to listen to my podcast, Newt's World. Most people know me as the former Speaker of the House, but I'm also a historian with a wide range of interests. I enjoy talking with fascinating people who are doing extraordinary things. I release 3 episodes of Newt's World every week, and I want to invite you to listen. Hopefully, we'll both learn something new. Listen to Newt's World on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast.
Welcome to today's edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show podcast.
Welcome back to the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show. This is Buck. I am in solo today, and I'm down in Palm Beach, Florida. I will be going to see some friends and the big guy himself up at Mar-a-Lago. Well, just kind of down the street, I suppose, at Mar-a-Lago. And there's an event there tonight, so I'll get a chance to see 45. Chat with some friends of the program and others who will be there as well. I want to tell you a story, if I can, about, as you know, I love history. This one really sticks with you when you learn it. You might have heard the name Pavlik Morozov. Pavlik Morozov. Does that ring a bell? Pavlik Morozov was born in, well, what is now Russia, what was then Russia, then became the Soviet Union. And he was the son of poor peasants, but he was the leader of the communist youth in his village. And he was about 12 years old when his father, who was the leader, this is back in 1930, his father was the leader of the local Soviet. Soviet means council, if anyone's wondering, or a small collective of people coming together to make decisions. His father was the leader of the local Soviet in his town, and 12-year-old Pavlik thought that his dad was an enemy of the Stalinist revolution underway, and so he publicly denounced him for being too favorable to the kulaks. Now, the kulaks were essentially the landowning farmer class that became, well, they were liquidated murdered en masse by the Soviet regime. But young Pavlik Morozov thought that his father was insufficiently devoted to the revolution. So he denounced his own father and denounced his own family, his own parents publicly. And he was then killed by kulaks and glorified as a martyr by the Soviet regime. So he was glorified by them because the idea was the ideology is all that matters. Your family, your parents, none of that has any bearing. All that matters is the revolution. All that matters is collectivism, communism. That's it. Now, when you look at some of these stories, one, obviously, that as a tool of propaganda was meant to break down family bonds. You know, break down family, break down gender, the very bonds that a civilization should be built upon, even before the state and all of our legislation and all the rest of it. Family is first, right? Well, if you want total and absolute control, you have to break down the family, and you have to come up with an ideological framework that turns people against their own family, right? I mean, I'm sure there are so many people in this audience who I would describe myself as a patriot. I would not turn on my family for anyone or any government, right? Well, you see this, though. You see this, and you will see this even next week at the Thanksgiving table, I'm afraid, in some of your households, where someone, perhaps a younger member of your extended family, a niece, a nephew, second cousin Phil or a third cousin Phyllis or whatever. Do we do third? I guess there are third cousins. No one ever really pays attention to third cousins. But they may all of a sudden want to launch into some lecture about how this midterm election was the defeat of the threat to our democracy and white supremacy and all these other things, these phrases, the sloganeering of the woke left. And you might think to yourself, can we just eat our Thanksgiving dinner and enjoy time with family, which is so precious. And I'm only 40, but I know as I get older, this is the stuff that actually matters. Who you are and what you do to take care of and help the people who matter in your life, who you're interacting with day in and day out. That's all that really matters. And all this other stuff people get all caught up in. Oh, how many social media followers do I have? Oh, am I going to get that bonus at work or whatever? Pales in comparison when you have the perspective of knowing that your family and the people who matter in your life are what matters in your life. But so why do some people come to the Thanksgiving dinner wanting to not just exchange of ideas is great. I've done shows with liberals, and I've always parted, meaning co-hosted shows in the past where I was with a leftist, Bernie Sanders supporting leftist. I've always left on friendly terms. Didn't agree with anything, but I left on friendly terms because I'll speak to anybody who is civil and wants to share ideas. But what you may come across are people who want to tell you that if you don't agree, you're a bad person. And they will be illogical in their arguments. And they will say things that are just untrue and obtuse. But it'll sound like it comes directly from not just MSNBC and CNN on the editorial pages of the New York Times, but these TikTok influencers and these social justice advocates online and the people that are teaching seminars on critical race theory and the diversity educators. You'll say, wait a second. It sounds like you're just parroting. You're just mouthing the preferred slogans here. Have you ever thought this one through? And I'm thinking about this today. One, because some of you are going to be dealing with that at Thanksgiving. My family was such a good time at things. We're all just so happy to be together and so blessed that everyone right now in my family, thank God, is doing well and healthy. And I'm sure so many of you have the same. But, other years I've had grandparents pass. We've had different situations, and that's just life. That's what happens. But overall, we're just so happy to all be together. Yeah, we'll talk about movies and we'll talk about favorite books and things like that. Maybe a little bit of politics, but no one's showing up. No one shows up in my family to get into a spat, and certainly not to be nasty to anybody. We would just never allow that. But I know it happens to so many of my friends. I know that happens to so many people. You may have seen an extreme example of this, a modern day Pavlik Morozov denouncing the parents situation that has gone viral this week, again, on social media. There is a billionaire auto loans magnate named Donald Foss. He died, unfortunately, in August of a very aggressive cancer. This happened, obviously, cancer's taken so many of our loved ones over the years. And this is something that you would just say, obviously, thoughts and prayers for his family. And well, it turns out one member of his family, his youngest daughter, Samantha, 19 years old. I'm just wondering, before I tell you where this is going, do any of you want to guess? Does Samantha go by plural pronouns? You answered yes. You got that one right. They. Does Samantha, his daughter, who is an adult, so don't give me but she's just a kid. She's an adult. She's 19 years old. She wanted to speak publicly about this. She shared it. She's proud of it. Okay, well, let's talk. Because this is the indoctrination that colleges and universities are doing to your kids all across the country right now. And TikTok and social media. You are fighting against the apparatus. It is more slick. It is more entertaining than the Soviet version, but it really isn't all that different in what it is trying to bring about. The division and destruction of families, the division and destruction of the load-bearing walls of our civilization. Things like gender, male roles, female roles, mom, dad, all this kind of stuff. If you can get someone to attack their own parents, to denounce their own parents. By the way, this was at the heart of the Cultural Revolution in Maoist China as well. It's not unique to the Soviet Union. And the very term itself, brainwashing, comes from a transliteration of the Chinese for washing of the brain that occurred during the Cultural Revolution, as in you had to just believe what they said, say what they said, and that included turning in your own family members. So billionaire auto loans guy, Donald Foss, he dies. His daughter's 19 years old. She describes herself as a black supremacist. Oh, his wife is African American. So this is his daughter. Okay. This is his daughter. His wife was black. His daughter is biracial. And she is at her father's funeral. And this is the kind of stuff she says at the funeral of her own dad, and then promotes publicly and celebrates when it goes viral. Play the clip.
When you died, it solidified the fact that you'll never be what you could have been, but only what you are. And what you are is a racist, misogynistic, xenophobic, Trump-loving, cis-straight white man. That is all you will ever be to me.
All you are is a racist, misogynist, cisgender, Trump-loving white man. Dripping here with her own racism, actually, with her own venom, with her own hatred. And you might be wondering, young Samantha, who is already being celebrated, just like Pavlik, by the communes, by the commissars. Young Samantha here being celebrated by the left, ultra viral this week for denouncing her father. Did she grow up in hardship? What kind of racism was she subjected to? Again, by all accounts, loving father who married her mother who is black. She's calling this man a racist. There's a lot of bizarre going on here, right? Hold on a second. Loving to his daughter. She grew up in a $7 million home and goes to a $60,000 a year private college that, of course, him and his estate are now paying for in Georgia, and had nothing but not just advantages, the lap of luxury. She is a spoiled brat. But it's worse than that. It's worse than that because her mind, her brain has been washed. The brainwashing has occurred. The commissars and their TikTok videos and their posts on Twitter and all of the constant CRT and the racial divisiveness that has become so important to the left because this is what their power is based on, identity politics. It has been so infused in this young woman's brain that she would stand at her father's funeral. And she says even worse stuff, completely denounces him. Doesn't love him, doesn't miss him, total disgrace because he's a Trump voter. Now you could say he's a white cisgender man. Of course, she uses they pronouns. White cisgender man, and she has nothing to say but the venomous defamation of her own loving father in public. She didn't say he was abusive. She didn't say he, was calling people racial slur. She had no basis for this hatred at all, other than this man shares the beliefs about America and politics that I and so many of you share, and that she hates him that much. What do you think she thinks about you and me, by the way? And for anyone who's saying this is just one obviously confused, I'm using plural pronouns, sure, obviously confused 19-year-old woman, the left celebrates this. They say she is the real deal. She's like the Antifa of wokeness, you see. She's a shock troop. She'll denounce her own father. She's Pavlik Morozov Part 2. She'll throw her own family under the bus for wokeness. If you don't think that this is being taught to your own children right now in schools, and even more potently in many ways online and by the apparatus, you're not seeing what's going on. And I know many of you do see it. I know you do recognize this, but I'm just for anybody out there who has any doubts. For anyone who's saying, "Oh, Buck, I live in a red state. Things are more normal here in the school." Really? What do you think it's like online? What do you think the YouTube influencers who spend more time talking to your kid most likely day in and day out than anybody else, what do you think they're saying? Oh, if your parents voted for Trump, or they're Republicans, or they don't support transgender affirmation surgery for 12-year-olds, they're monstrous. Not just to disagree with them, to actually openly hate them. Why? Because as I told you, they want total control. And the only way they can have total control is if they break down the most foundational of human bonds and love between family members. This is the left in America today. I know it's disconcerting, but it is the truth. We're just talking about how they're brainwashing your kids all over the place. I don't want to just leave that out there and not give you a solution, an answer, something you can do. We all have to fight back, right? Take note of the Tuttle Twins books. Look, I know it's hard to get kids to read these days, and you got to get them locked into something that they're learning from, but that also is promoting the kind of values you want for your children. That's what the Tuttle Twins books do. They're opening up interesting discussions about things that really matter for our kids' futures as well as our country. Some teachers, as you know, so many books focusing on activism, brainwashing your kids to hate their country, to disagree with, and maybe worse, their own parents. The Tuttle Twins books counteract that. You want an antidote to the wokeness madness for your kids? Try the Tuttle Twins books. Helping kids understand logic and beauty and personal liberty, that can be complicated, but it's essential. These simple books with pictures and thought-provoking stories make it easy for your kids to understand. Go to TuttleRadio.com. That's Tuttle, Tuttle, radio.com to get these life-changing books for all the kids in your life. You'll get free workbooks and 35% off. To all the parents out there and all the aunts and uncles, and, if you want to just get a great gift for the kids in your life this holiday season, TuttleRadio.com.
Newt Gingrich here, and I'd like to invite you to listen to my podcast, Newt's World. Most people know me as the former Speaker of the House, but I'm also a historian with a wide range of interests. I enjoy talking with fascinating people across a variety of topics. On Newt's World, we've had some extraordinary guests join us, like former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger.
Ending the war in Vietnam was a necessity in order to help heal the divisions in the country.
John Clifton, the CEO of Gallup.
The world has been winning the war against hunger for 4 decades. In 2014, it switched. We have a serious hunger crisis.
And House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy.
What I've really found the Republican Party to be, it's the party of the people, the working people of America.
I release 3 episodes of Newt's World podcast every week, and I hope you'll find my conversations engaging and informative, and hopefully we'll both learn something new. Listen to Newt's World on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast.
Welcome back to Clay and Buck. This is Buck, and I got to tell you, the libs, the libs melting down over Twitter. It's amazing. It's amazing because they're just in total emotional freefall over this. They still have Facebook. They still have Google and YouTube and TikTok and all these platforms but the loss of total control of but one platform. They were projecting at the Twitter headquarters, the main headquarters in San Francisco. They were projecting on the side of the building that all this stuff about Elon Musk, Elon, because they had some mass resignation, and Elon Musk is they're calling him like an apartheid profiteer and a maniac and a mansplainer. I'm trying to find exactly what some of the verbiage is, but the meltdown that they are having is honestly remarkable. And it's funny too that there are people who really seem to believe that your boss is somebody that you can publicly humiliate without consequence. So if you work for somebody, you can say in a public forum, yeah, that guy's an idiot, and think you're going to keep your job. This just goes to show you, because the people who are doing this at Twitter, they're not stupid. They are politically brainwashed and emotionally unstable. No emotionally stable adult is going to think, that just has a normal IQ is going to think, yeah, I can just call my boss a total moron. Nothing's going to happen to me. It's not how it works in the real world. But also, when he put out some note that says, you actually are going to have to show up to work and work really hard. That was the basic version of it. And people were all of a sudden like, oh my gosh, he thinks we're going to show up and do hard work and perhaps even long hours. Yeah. We'll talk more about that. My friend Ned Ryan from American Majority is going to join, talk about how we kick butt in elections going forward. He's done the groundwork. We'll talk about the legwork, about the groundwork. Stay with me. I become a fan, a real fan, and a believer in Hillsdale College for years now. Their passion for this nation and our freedoms knows no boundaries. They go far beyond their Michigan College campus to educate using speeches, a newsletter, and a series of free online video courses to remind us of the value of our freedoms. one after another. They do not disappoint. There's never a test, never a requirement to watch every episode of every series. Their goal is to make their free online courses so compelling that you'll just want to watch them all. The newest video series is co-hosted by two Hillsdale professors. They explore the thoughts and ideas of America's founders. Check this course out. It's called The Real American Founding, A Conversation. Watch the trailer video of The Real American Founding, A Conversation, and sign up for this new completely free online course at clayandbuckforhillsdale.com. That's Clay and Buck for Hillsdale.com. Let's talk about winning, as in how we win close elections, because it's absolutely essential. You know, we've been drilling down on this one. I want to bring somebody into the mix here who's both a good friend of mine, close to President Trump and his top advisors, and knows what it means to put a ground game in place and how elections are won. Our friend Ned Ryan, he is the founder of American Majority. He is with us now. Ned, always appreciate you having you.
Yeah, no, good to be on with you, Buck. And there have been a lot of questions and a little soul searching since last Tuesday. And I think I have come up with the conclusion of what actually happened and what we should be doing moving forward.
I know you've got a piece that's going up shortly, and I don't want to get too much of it out there on the air because I want you to be able to publish it and then direct people to it. But you write in this piece, Ned, after sifting through a lot of rubble since last Tuesday and having done some soul searching on even basic knowledge of politics, I've come to a few conclusions. American politics has entered a new age. All that has gone before, polls, historical trends, message, issues, candidate quality, traditional get out the vote, debates, persuasion, mean almost nothing and is extremely insignificant. Tell us what you mean.
So after Virginia last year, where I'm at, I'm based in western Loudoun County, obviously ground zero on school board fights, and a blue state. I mean, Biden won this state by 10 points in 2020. And then last year we beat the Democrats on every front. We took the governor, we took lieutenant governor, we took attorney general, we took the House of Delegates in what I would describe as a more traditional go out and find the mid to low propensity voters, get them to the polls, you win. And we won. We won everything. And I think that really led to me and others being overconfident coming into 2022 based off those results. It led us to have the wrong conclusions that we could beat what they put in place in 2020 with what we did in 2021. I think there were two things that came out of that, Buck. I think we were overconfident. I think we had the wrong conclusions. And I think the left got panicked. I think they redialed in their efforts from 2020 and said, we're going to really figure out our early mail-in, absentee ballot harvesting approach. And they did. And that's why I say we've entered into a completely new era in politics. As a lot of us noticed, Democrats were not debating. I mean, it was very limited debates. Katie Hobbs never even debated in the gubernatorial in Arizona. Shapiro never debated in the Pennsylvania gubernatorial. Very odd behavior, because they realized that the new era of politics is ballots out, ballots in machine. And as appalling as some might find it, I think that is the game. There's no way you're going to win as a Republican in 2024 at the presidential. I don't care who you are. I've told others, if the skies opened and Jesus came down and ran as the Republican nominee, I'm not sure he could win if he didn't have a ballot out, ballot in machine. And I think we have to really come to grips with that and go moving forward for the next 2 years. We better put in place that machine, or I think we're going to see more losses in 2024, even though I truly believe most of the American people agree with us on the economy, on inflation, a lot of these cultural issues. We will not win unless we get the functional aspect of this down, and I intend to do that over the next 2 years.
So, Ned, you were at Mar-a-Lago, I think it was on Tuesday for the announcement, right? And President
Correct.
Trump, I don't want to overstate this or whatever. Ned's a humble guy. He probably wouldn't say this, but President Trump likes and trusts Ned because Ned knows what he's talking about on this stuff, and he obviously runs American Majority. Ned, does President Trump get it? And is he on board? Because he's already announced. Does he understand what you're talking about here with how it has to happen? Does he already get the message? And what would it look like? So this is kind of a two-parter, right? Does Trump get it?
Right.
And then also, just more generally, for the Republicans, for any Republican running in any race, what does it look like to get this right?
So there are a couple of things. First of all, I was there. I did not meet with Trump personally, but I have informed Susie Wiles, she'll be running the campaign, even though I think Chris LaCivita will have the campaign manager title. Susie Wiles is the power behind the throne. We've missed connecting over the last couple of days. I want to have this conversation with Trump and with Susie and others that if you do not commit to this vocally and with significant funds, I think we're in trouble. I think anybody who wants to run in 2024, if they do not commit to this, will be in trouble. We can have the best issues. We can have the best candidates. We can have everything going in our favor. If we do not commit to this, we will lose. And I think that's part of the message, and I think I want to see some real commitment to that, not only financially but vocally, because I think there's going to have to be an education cycle in which we get more of the grassroots buying in. I think a lot of them have already bought in, Buck. I do know that there's some resistance and hesitation, but it has to happen. And
can we expand on that for a second, Ned? Because even I get there's this constant feedback I get from this audience all across the country. People writing in, sending me Facebook messages, emails, and I read a lot of them. I don't always get to all of them, but I do read a lot of them. I think people are surprised how many I read. And there's this sense of, there's the hesitation to want to do what has been done by Democrats, even if we all agree that it's legal. Right? It is actually by the letter of the law. I'm not talking about the illegal shenanigan stuff. That's a separate conversation, and we can have that one. But for I don't want to do the ballots out, ballots in strategy, meaning, registration, mail out the ballots, mail in the ballots, harvest the ballots, all of that. What's the hesitation? Mm-hmm. Is it just tradition? Is it just a sense that it shouldn't be this way?
I think there's a real hesitation about it. It shouldn't be this way. It is, and I'll even mention this in my new piece that you alluded to, that it's going to run at amgreatness.com. I think people go, well, this is corrupt. This is ripe for fraud. This is ripe for all sorts of shenanigans. Yes, 100%. And then my next question is, how do you intend to actually do anything differently and change the laws in places like Michigan, where they control everything, in Pennsylvania, and all these other important Rust Belt states? You can't do it unless you actually adopt their strategy.
What would it look like? We're speaking to Ned Ryan of American Greatness. Ned, what is it? What happens if we get people to heed the message here and you get the grassroots activists for the GOP that you get conservative activists mobilized in Pennsylvania, Arizona, Michigan, Georgia, you name it. What are the things that they're doing and how do they do it?
It looks like Florida. And another aspect of this piece will be, Buck, ask yourself, how did Republicans win in a state that until very, very recently was a D-plus registration state? That was Florida until literally the last year. How did Republicans keep on winning for decades? They embraced the fact that I think it's 30 to 40% of Florida votes by mail and has for years. They've adopted their strategies to an early voting, mail-in, absentee ballot chase approach. There's no ballot harvesting or ballot boxes, to be clear, in Florida, but a lot of these main aspects have been perfected by Republican operatives in Florida, many of whom I know, Susie Wiles being one of them, her team. I think what it looks like is implementing a lot of the Florida Republican plan in Arizona, in Nevada, in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, persuading the grassroots. This has been done. It is fine. We must embrace it. If we do not, we will lose. Then we can have the conversation, Buck. Once we gain political power, and we have to gain political power, we can have that conversation about what we do moving forward if we really want to see our elections in America look like this. That's the second conversation. You cannot have it until you have the first conversation and embrace the first approach, which is ballots out, ballots in. And as you kind of mentioned, that includes voter registration. You've got to get more names onto the actual voter rolls. You've got to get county clerks, Republican county clerks, universal mail out, even if they're not requested. Mail out a ballot to everyone in your county, and then you've got to have a targeted approach to collect them. The other thing I'll tell you, too, here in Loudoun County, because it's legal, Cornerstone Church, where I attend, was ballot harvesting last year. Churches need to ballot harvest. Gun shows need to ballot harvest. All of this needs to take place where it is legal. We have to embrace it. I don't see any other way to win in the short term.
Check out Ned's piece going up soon at AmericanGreatness.com. We'll put up the link as well at ClayandBuck.com so you can easily find it. Ned, important work, and appreciate your analysis as always, my friend. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Buck.
I'm planning to go on Friday. Clay is going to be solo. I've got a day planned out, taking a day off, which I never do, so I can go shooting. I'm going to go shooting with a couple of friends of mine who are former SEALs because, they're amazing at what they do. And we're going to be training all day. We're going to be doing handgun, long gun, carbine, all of it, right? 8 hours out there on the range. We're going to burn through probably thousands of rounds of ammunition. It's going to be fantastic. But you know what I've been doing in the meantime to get ready for this? My Mantis X system. Mantis X is an amazing dry fire at-home practice system that requires no ammunition to help your firearm skills. It's a firearms training system that is no ammo, all electronic, and data-driven. So the Mantis X gives you data-driven real-time feedback on your firing technique, guides you through drills and courses. 94% of shooters improve within 20 minutes of using the Mantis X, and I'm one of them. Honestly, it's biomechanics, my friends. It's just repetition. You have to get, trigger pull is so important. I had this issue. I pull left when I pull. I pull left when I pull. The Mantis X helps so much with it. The product's now being used by U.S. military and special forces. It's military-grade technology at an affordable price. It is a must-have for every gun owner. If you believe in your Second Amendment rights, you must also act on your Second Amendment responsibility to be competent in your shooting ability. Start improving your shooting accuracy today. Get yours at MantisX.com. That's MANTIS. Mantis, like praying mantis. MantisX.com.
Newt Gingrich here, and I'd like to invite you to listen to my podcast, Newt's World. Most people know me as the former Speaker of the House, but I'm also a historian with a wide range of interests. I enjoy talking with fascinating people across a variety of topics. On Newt's World, we've had some extraordinary guests join us, like former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger.
Ending the war in Vietnam was a necessity in order to help heal the divisions in the country.
John Clifton, the CEO of Gallup.
The world has been winning the war against hunger for 4 decades. In 2014, it switched. We have a serious hunger crisis.
And House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy.
What I've really found the Republican Party to be, it's the party of the people, the working people of America.
I release 3 episodes of Newt's World podcast every week, and I hope you'll find my conversations engaging and informative, and hopefully we'll both learn something new. Listen to Newt's World on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast.
I got some breaking news for all of you, especially for our Coloradans listening. Well, some of you live in this district. Lauren Boebert, fiery member of Congress, Lauren Boebert, she keeps her seat officially. I thought she was going to pull it out. I already sent her congrats. Had a feeling it was going to be all good for her. She pulled it out. Tough fight in that Colorado district, but she is another member of Congress. And folks, it's if it weren't for some of these pickups that we've seen Colorado is now blue, really, as a state. It was purple. It's gone pretty blue. And if it wasn't for New York, California, Florida running up the numbers of Republican congressional seats, obviously Florida was just running the tables, period. But in New York and California, they weren't going to win statewide, but district by district, they were able to pull off some big wins. And that's why we have that majority in the House of Representatives, which is so essential. It means that things won't get quite as crazy. So there's that. And also some breaking news from Elon Musk as I'm sitting here. One day I'm just hoping I'll sit here and be like, Elon says, Buck Sexton on radio is fantastic. That hasn't happened yet, though. I'm waiting for that tweet. I really think Buck is the best on, one day. Clay and Buck radio is the best radio, the dynamic duo. And he's getting more British the more I say this. I got to stop. My Elon impersonation probably needs a little work. But he tweeted out, new Twitter policy is freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach. Negative and hate tweets will be deboosted and demonetized. You won't find the tweet unless you seek it out. Okay. But this was more interesting to me. Jordan Peterson and the Babylon Bee and Kathy Griffin. But hey, look, principle's principle. So she's a crazy lib, but she deserves her platform back too, I suppose. I don't remember what she got banned for, but, whatever. But Jordan Peterson and the Babylon Bee are back on Twitter. However, the Trump decision has not been made yet. The Trump decision has not been made yet. That is, look, I don't know how we can think that this is a true free speech platform if you have the only Republican who has officially announced for the presidential nomination of 2024 and who I think Trump, when he got booted off, had close to 100 million followers, something like that. It's pretty big following. Pretty big following. If you don't allow him on, how can we really consider it a free speech platform? Now, there's the other side of this too, which is Trump, and a lot of you are going to point this out to me, and I know, is Trump even going to go onto the platform? And here's what I'll say. I don't see how if he is given the option, I don't think he can turn it down, because it was a much more critical piece in his run in 2016 than anybody thought it would be at that time. Now, some of you I know also are going to say, I don't really want Trump to be highly active on Twitter as he's running or if he's president. Look, this is all going to get worked out, but I did think this just happened in the last 15 minutes. Elon says the Babylon Bee is back. The Babylon Bee, I got to say, they do such good work. I mean, they really do. It's such a clever site, and I'm a fan. And I think Elon's a fan too, which is part of how this whole thing got going, because remember how crazy things are. So, you have to remind yourself of this, because I do worry sometimes that for all of us who live in reality and think that reality is an actual thing, it's not just a vague set of competing sensory perceptions that can be molded based on propaganda, that there are things that are true. I'm sitting in a chair right now. The libs can tell me that I'm sitting on top of a hippopotamus, but I am in fact sitting in a chair, right? There is definitive truth. There are things we can say that are true. The Babylon Bee was suspended for calling Rachel Levine the HHS 3-star admiral or something like, I forget Levine's, designation in HHS, but I think it's like a HHS 3-star admiral or something like that, called Rachel Levine the Babylon Bee's Man of the Year, in response to, I forget, it might have been Time Magazine or something called Rachel Levine Woman of the Year, or there's some publication called Rachel Levine Woman of the Year. They booted a parody site off of Twitter for that. Other things that they have refused to allow people to, you couldn't say learn to code to journalists because some journalists got fired and they have friends at Twitter. And so they just said, no, not allowed to make that joke about journalists. Oh, okay. Not allowed to dead name people, which is a term that some of you may even still have to be refreshed on. Dead naming is if I refer to Chelsea Manning as Bradley Manning. Remember, sent to prison for the classified document theft, all that stuff, WikiLeaks. If I refer to Chelsea Manning as Bradley Manning, I can get, even in the context of, well, this is this person's former name, doesn't matter. Their previous name as their actual gender does not exist. Anyway, will Trump be back on Twitter? That's a big one. We're going to look at it. We're going to look at it very closely. Coming back here in a few minutes, rocking solo today as Clay is on a day off, and he'll be in solo Monday, so we're taking turns here at the mic for a couple of days. I'm going to talk to you about the latest at our southern border. More numbers, more details on that one. Take some of your calls, 800-282-2882. Love hearing from all you across the country. And basically, we're rocking and rolling. I can't believe how fast the show is flying by today. Maybe I'll come up with a end of third hour movie or book recommendation. So, worth sticking around just for that.
Newt Gingrich here, and I'd like to invite you to listen to my podcast, Newt's World. Most people know me as the former Speaker of the House, but I'm also a historian with a wide range of interest. I enjoy talking with fascinating people who are doing extraordinary things. I release 3 episodes of Newt's World every week, and I want to invite you to listen. Hopefully, we'll both learn something new. Listen to Newt's World on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast.